There's nothing wrong with your psychedelic experience. This is kind of like the core message that I want to explore with you today. Hey, I'm Vego. I'm a psychedelic integration coach. And over the last couple of weeks, more and more people came to me and were asking me about their psychedelic experience. And I've noticed kind of like a pattern in that there was a judgment towards the psychedelic experience that some people that were reaching out were having. Like, I've had this DMT experience, but I didn't break through. Oh, I could have gone deeper. I've had this ayahuasca experience and now I'm feeling existential angst. Something went wrong in that experience. There was something that was not quite right about it. Or I took these mushrooms. I was preparing for this retreat, or I was preparing for weeks in taking these mushrooms, and finally I found the time, and then I ate a couple grams and it didn't do anything. Nothing came up for me. There was something wrong with the experience. And what I want to convey and explore here today is, first of all, the statements that no, there is nothing wrong with your psychedelic experiences. And then 3 simple steps that you can take on to deal with this sensation that can guide you from the perspective that there's something wrong to the perspective that there's something right, and then go about integrating your psychedelic experience properly, because that is kind of like the key, is the integration part. Because all these thoughts and these judgments that we're creating are part of the integration. So this is actually the first step. Step number 1 is to shift your perspective and to release the judgment. Because basically what this statement and what these sensations and thoughts are saying that sometimes arise for all of us is that there's something wrong with the experience. It should have been different. I wanted it to be different. I have a preference, I have a bias, I have a certain sense of expectation onto the experience, onto the psychedelic experience, that I'm going to experience infinite love, that I'm going to be enlightened forever after the experience, that it's going to fix all my problems. And if that didn't happen, then there was something wrong, right? And when we release that judgment, we automatically shift the perspective. And we release the wrongness of the experience. Because when there's no judgment, then there's nothing wrong, right? So the sensation that there's something wrong with the experience itself comes just from our own sense of self, from this selfish desire and bias and preference that we kind of like naturally embody with our ego mind. So when we release that, there's nothing wrong anymore with the experience. And it's just a simple perspective shift that is happening. There's nothing needed externally in order for us to make this shift. We can basically just say, the experience was perfect just the way it was. Doesn't mean that we cannot learn from this or cannot adjust our psychedelic journeying the next couple of times we go in, but this is exactly what was needed. This is exactly what it was. You know, it's an appreciation of the fact of what was without our judgment layered on top of this. This is in the psychedelic actualization framework what I call kind of like the dance of detached appreciation. Looking at every appearance of reality, but not fixating on it, not holding on to it, not putting our judgment onto this, but then just seeing it for what it is and gently, maybe even appreciating it for what it is, for what it was. So letting it go, but gently honoring it. So this is kind of like the dance of detached appreciation. And as a last piece to this first point, I want to kind of like inspire you or ask yourself that where is that pattern maybe showing up for you? Because what I found with many clients of mine is that there is a pattern in our language, in the way we talk to ourselves, in the way that we see our experiences, and this pattern of this shouldn't have been this way, but I wanted it to be this way, is maybe even a pattern that is acting unconsciously in the broader picture of your life. So where else despite of the psychedelic experience, are you maybe judging an experience, having a strong bias towards one experience over another? And then see if there's something that you can learn from that. You know, there's like, oh, I should be working today. I cannot relax because I'm sick. There's a present one for me. I'm really sick at the moment, and I still do this video, right? I still do some work, even though I'm not really feeling it. Because I tell myself I should do this. I'm judging the experience. Otherwise, the day is not accomplished to the degree that I feel satisfied with it. No, it's like, that's not the case. So releasing the judgment is the first step. And then the second step, and I kind of like already talked a lot about this, is the integration, basically, as the path forward. So instead of hanging on to the experience and wishing for it to be different, or judging it in a sense that you didn't get deep enough, or nothing happened, or you didn't learn what you wanted to learn, look at it as it is, and then take the integration, the psychedelic integration, as the path forward. So basically that might even mean looking inwards, reflecting about it, taking a pen and a paper and just journaling your insights, asking yourself like, okay, this is what it was. You know, what can I learn from this experience? What did this experience show me? What kind of like value of mine was not honored in the experience? What about it didn't I like? What about it did I feel like was not working quite right? And then just deeply look into the experience, deeply look within, and start a process of self-reflection onto the experience. Or maybe even just let it sit for a bit and just digest it by sitting. And then when we look at this, we can gain an insight. We have an opportunity here to reflect on our experience and reflect on our judgment, on our approach to whatever it was that we were experiencing, and whatever it is that we are still experiencing right now. So, okay, this experience brought about a certain existential angst that I don't feel comfortable with, which I don't like. Hey, okay, what's that about? We're getting curious about the consequences and the experience itself, because curiosity itself heals judgment. And then from that, there's an opportunity for learning that is arising. And from this learning, we can derive a certain sense of insight. Aha! I learned this about myself. I learned this about the experience. And then that's leading us to the third step, which is the embodiment. Let's not just reflect and journal and write down, but also actually take action. You know, just really move into doing something with that insight, moving towards a greater extent of embodiment in our daily life. So that might mean to come up with a list of action steps, even if that is just doing nothing or letting that experience digest properly. That might be one action step. Another one might be, okay, like time for some psychotherapy to to look at this existential angst that was maybe present, but I was suppressing it and now it's come to the surface. Maybe I want to work through that consciously now. I've had one experience, one ayahuasca experience. It was one of the deepest and hardest and mind-boggling ones ever in the jungle. A 14-day ayahuasca retreat with 8 nights of drinking. And the 7th night I was just faced with a deep fear of death. And I was in this experience of dying, but I couldn't really break through. And it's like, oh, you know. And then there was a sense of like, wow, I'm afraid of death. And that was terrifying, and that was hard to be with in the days and weeks and even months afterwards. But I kind of like gently saw it then as an opportunity to learn something about myself. I have this fear of death, even though my spiritual self was telling me that I was not afraid of death. And now I can work with it consciously. I'm going to study a little bit about the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I'm going to look into this fear. I'm going to really work with that fear. Take action towards really processing that fear, towards a greater embodiment of what the psychedelic experience wanted to teach me. Nothing wrong with that experience, even though in the moment it felt like something was going terribly wrong. I couldn't handle my shit and whatever else was happening in that experience. You can watch that trip report here. It's a crazy one. So yeah, so action and alignment. Align yourself with what you have learned about that experience without any judgment. Still here, also kind of like dancing in the detached appreciation, saying not, this is wrong in my life right now and I want it to be something else, but no, I learned something and now I'm enjoying the process of embodiment. So this is kind of like what I wanted to convey, that there's nothing wrong with your psychedelic experiences. If you're not breaking through, if you're having uncomfortable consequences of these experiences, if there's something that was weird or confusing, all of this is perfectly fine. And even with some experiences, it might be that there's not so much great learning happening out of these. There's not even a potential for embodiment, but there is always the potential to just release the judgment, let the experience come and let the experience go, and then move on with your life. That's the integration. You're moving on with your life. You're living a good life. And if you feel the desire and the inspiration, you have always the opportunity to go back into psychedelic space. If it's really calling you, then at least for me, I found that a couple confusing experiences which are shaking me to the bones are not going to stop me from going back again and just saying like, okay, that was one experience I didn't quite understand, that I felt like I couldn't do anything with it. Nothing wrong with that. That's part of the processing. That's a part of the building of the relationship with the substance itself. And then I just go in again and I say, hello, let's explore further. What else do you have to offer? What else is there to be experienced without any judgment? What else can I dance with? And then we're moving on with our life. That's the integration, as psychedelic integration is nothing else but life itself. So that's about it. I hope that was helpful. Flowed out of me. I felt the inspiration to just share. As based on many people reaching out to me, and just asking for advice. If there's any question you have, feel free to reach out through Instagram or book a call with me, first link in the video description, if you're curious about coaching and one-on-one support in your psychedelic integration journey. Much love, all the blessings. Have a beautiful rest of your day.